Why China's clean energy is leaving the US behind. Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into one of the biggest shifts of our time. Why is China's clean energy industry surging ahead while the US still struggles with subsidies and policy debates? This isn't just about electricity. It's about the future of manufacturing, global power, and even the price of your monthly energy bill. We'll break this down into 5 parts. Solar power the grid, curtailment wind power, policy, and along the way, we'll see why the real difference isn't technology, it's the system behind it. Solar, the scale difference. Let's start with speed. In the first quarter of 2025, China installed 60 gigawatts of solar, more than the US will likely add in the entire year. By May, China's solar capacity passed 1,100 gigawatts. What does that mean? That's 6 times the US total, or enough to power all of Europe. The US, by the end of 2024, stood at just 177 gigawatts. Why such a huge gap? It all comes down to cost. In China, big solar farms can generate electricity as cheap as 1.4 to 2.1 cents, or kWh. That's cheaper than a bottle of water. Meanwhile, in the US, the same projects cost 5 to 8 cents, or kWh, 3 to 5 times more. It's like movie tickets. In China, they're $10. In the US, they're $40. Guess which theater fills up? Why is China cheaper? 3 big reasons. World's cheapest solar panels. China makes over 80% of global solar products. From polysilicon to modules, the whole supply chain is domestic and integrated. Chinese panels, 16 to 19 cents per watt. US panels, 28 cents per watt, often imported with tariffs. Faster, cheaper projects. A 1 gigawatt solar farm in China can be built in 6 months for 42 cents or W. In the US, the Topaz project in California, 550 megawatts, took years just for permitting, costing over 56 cents or W. Supply chain friction. US projects depend on imports from Southeast Asia, often caught in trade disputes. China builds and installs locally, with fewer delays. The result? In China, clean energy is already a profitable business on its own. In the US, clean energy still depends heavily on subsidies. The grid, electricity's highway system. Generating electricity is one thing, delivering it is another. China's grid works like a national highway network. State grid plus southern grid cover 99% of the population. Ultra-high voltage, UHV, lines act like bullet trains for electricity, carrying solar and wind from the deserts of Xinjiang and Gansu thousands of miles to Shanghai and Guangzhou. For example, the Jiangbei Xuanyan UHV project supplies 10% of Beijing's electricity, direct from distant wind and solar farms. America's grid looks more like 3 disconnected islands. The eastern, western, and Texas grids barely connect. California often has so much solar at noon that prices go negative, then burns natural gas at night. In 2021, a Texas winter storm left 5 million homes without power because the grid was isolated and couldn't import backup electricity. So while China can balance energy nationwide, the US is stuck in too much here, not enough there. Curtailment, the waste problem. But what if there's too much clean energy? That's curtailment, when you throw away green electricity. China's story, in 2015, 2017, some regions wasted 30–40% of wind and solar. But by building UHV lines, adding storage, and requiring the grid to prioritize renewables, curtailment fell to just 5% in 2023. In early 2025, it crept back to 6.6% because capacity grew so fast, but the long-term trend is improving. Take Jiangsu province, Once infamous for wasted power, it now sends 10 billion kilowatt-hour a year to other provinces, enough for millions of homes. The U.S. story, in 2022, California wasted 5 terawatt-hour of solar, equivalent to several million households' annual use. Curtailment averages around 10%, and is rising. Battery projects like Tesla's Megapack help, but not at the necessary scale. So while China used to be the worst offender, today it's moving faster to solve the problem. Wind. Solar's teammate clean energy isn't just about the sun. The wind is just as important. China added 46 gigawatts of new wind in the first 5 months of 2025 alone. Total wind capacity, nearly 500 gigawatts. Costs 3 to 4 cents or kWh, already below coal. Utilization rates 25–30%, lower than the US, but scale is enormous. Importantly, China invests heavily in maintenance and upgrades, keeping turbines reliable in harsh climates. US, total, about 150 gigawatts, mostly in Texas. Utilization 35–40%, the best in the world. But when Texas gets too windy, the grid can't export electricity. When wind dies down, there's no backup. In 2021, frozen turbines were one reason the grid collapsed. So again, the US has technical strengths, but China's scale and system design give it the edge. Policy, the decisive factor. Here's the heart of the story. Policy. China's approach, long-term national strategy. Renewable energy targets are written into 5-year plans. When curtailment hit 30%, Beijing ordered UHV lines built and guaranteed renewable purchase. The 2060 carbon neutrality goal provides certainty for decades. Today, solar and wind in China are subsidy-free, something unimaginable 10 years ago. The U.S. approach, market plus subsidies. In 2022, the Inflation Reduction Act pledged $369 billion for clean energy, sparking a boom. But by 2025, parts of the policy were rolled back. Political swings mean rules change every election. Democrats push renewables, Republicans often cut back. Examples: the production tax credit for wind expired and restarted multiple times, creating a boom and bust cycle. Solar panel tariffs made U.S. projects more expensive, even when demand was strong. The contrast? In China, companies know clean energy is stable policy, safe to invest billions long-term. In the U.S., uncertainty makes investors hesitate. And here's the key concept. China started behind. Solar in 2010 needed heavy subsidies. But after years of scaling up, today Chinese renewables are subsidy-free and still the cheapest option. The U.S. hasn't crossed that line yet. Cheap electricity, the industrial advantage. Why does all this matter? Because cheap energy isn't just about the environment, it's about industry. In China, factories can run on solar and wind at 2 cents or kWh, cutting costs for steel, aluminum, and electric vehicles. This means products like batteries, EVs, and solar panels themselves are cheaper to make, reinforcing China's global edge. In the US, with higher energy costs, even with subsidies, clean manufacturing struggles to compete. Think about it. Cheap power is the foundation of the next industrial revolution. And right now, China is building that foundation faster than anyone else. To sum up, cost gap, China's solar can hit 1 to 2 cents or kWh. The US is still at 5 to 8 cents. Grid gap, China's UHV supergrid versus America's fragmented system. Curtailment gap, China is solving waste faster. Policy gap, China provides certainty. The US swings with politics. Industrial impact, cheap Chinese electricity powers cheaper manufacturing. That's why China's clean energy is racing ahead, not because it's subsidized, but because it no longer needs subsidies. It has become the most competitive energy on the market. The US can catch up, but only if it fixes its grid and stabilizes its policies. Until then, China is building a wall of cheap electricity around its industries, and the world will feel it. Looking ahead, the US needs grid upgrades and stable policies to catch up. China's model proves national engineering accelerates transitions. What do you think? Can the US close the gap? Drop your thoughts below, and subscribe for more insights about China. See you next time.